LDM Radio Sports Talk, the show that talks about sports and other topics relatable to sports fans. My name is Alfonso Caldero, and joining me from Pennsylvania is Scott Blanda.
Thank you for having me again, Pons.
All right. So, an absolutely wild week in Major League Baseball. So we have to start off with those good old local sports New York Yankees, who are 2-9 since the ending of their 13-game winning streak. And furthermore, the Toronto Blue Jays have made a 7-win streak of their own, with the last 3 beating the Yankees. So right now, the Yankees are only a game and a half up on the Toronto Blue Jays. What are your thoughts on that development? Even though I pretty much know what you're going to say, you might as well just say it for everybody to enjoy.
Well, I mean, you know me. I try to keep it objective. I mean, all sports are games of streaks. You know, even the best teams that ever were in any league ever, you can always find a decent little losing streak in there somewhere. 72 Dolphins notwithstanding. But other than that, you could always find a little losing streak. So, like I said, when they were on that 13-game tear, it was bound to happen. That being said, cooling off a little bit was bound to happen at all. Now, I don't know the team as well as you do, obviously, so I don't know which one is the real Yankees, the 13-game win streak or the 5-game losing streak, as well as the first half of the season. I don't know. I think, in my opinion, they just need to get in, and they're good enough to compete for go all the way and win the World Series. That being said, it's certainly going to make for an interesting last 22 games on both teams in New York.
Absolutely. We'll definitely touch on the Mets in a little bit. So as far as the AL East, so right now the Tampa Bay Rays, who shock everybody with the way they're just consistently good without really having big names and trading away big names seemingly every year. They are sitting pretty in the top of the American League. They have the best record in the American League, and also they have opened up a 9-game lead on the second place Boston Red Sox. New York Yankees follow them up. So the Yankees follow them up with a 9.5 games behind. So in all of these developments, the Boston Red Sox have been able to leapfrog over the Yankees for a little bit. And the Toronto Blue Jays. So I've always talked about the Toronto Blue Jays as being the best fourth-place team in baseball, clearly because, if you look at their run differential, they have their run differential is like over 100 runs than they've given up, which is way more than anybody else who is not in first or second place. And then you look at their lineup. Their lineup's absolutely stacked. Their lineup has, in this day and age, it's weird to have so many, over like 280 and above, and they have like pretty much like 6 or 7 hitters that are batting over 280, and it's a nice lineup. They know how to score runs. It seems like they've gotten their pitching in line, which was seemingly the worst problem. So that they're basically it's like they're losing games, 4-3, 3-2, and then they're winning games like 10-zip and 8-1 and things like that. So, in 2 games, the Yankees could be the best fourth-place team in baseball with the way that it's working out right now. So, Toronto is playing the Yankees tonight, and then, depending on what happens in that game and the rest of the series. So, as far as the Yankees go, they have a huge soft spot in their schedule, which seemingly seemed like it was including the Mets, but the New York Mets are actually they've caught a little bit of fire, and they are only 4 games away from the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, it's funny. It seems like the teams have completely flip-flopped both times. When the Yankees were on that tear, the Mets just completely fell apart. And now that the Yankees have fallen apart here over the past week or so, the Mets have caught a little bit of fire. Um, Still losing some games that they should be winning. A couple games they blew lead to Washington and Miami, and those are teams that you have to beat. I mean, you can't sweep everybody. You take 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4, yeah. And the Mets did what they had to do to get themselves back in the race, which was nice. That being said, 4 games back, 22 games to go. There's pretty much no margin of error, no room for error now. The good news is they will finish. I don't know if it's good news or bad news, but they will finish against, I believe, Atlanta and or the Phillies. Before that, Atlanta. So they do more or less control their own destiny. I know by the exact definition they don't, because they're not in 3 games, but they pretty much control their own destiny. So if they can keep it up, it could make for a very, very interesting last series against Philly. And, both teams, it's definitely an exciting time in baseball right now. I know that you guys Yankee fans, 2 weeks ago, you weren't hoping it would be this exciting. And Tampa, yeah, you said it. They kind of came out of nowhere, put themselves into the race. So it's very interesting last month here, for both teams.
Absolutely. So we'll take a look at the rest of the AL. So the Chicago White Sox are already well established. They are 11 games up on the Cleveland Indians, so they have that division locked down. It's pretty much been that way for about a month. And the AL West is right now looking like the Houston Astros are consistently on top, and the Seattle Mariners have crept up and taken over for the recently struggling Oakland A's. So the Astros have a 5.5 game lead on the Seattle Mariners and a 6 game lead on the Oakland A's. So as far as the wild card goes, so right now it was the past couple of shows the Yankees were sitting pretty at the top, and then we're all right. Well, we're gonna get at least one playoff game in the Bronx, and now that is very much up in the air because the Boston Red Sox have a half-game lead on the Yankees. Yankees still hold the second wild card spot, but only by a game and a half over the Toronto Blue Jays, who ended up gaining 3 games in the past week. Seattle Mariners are 2.5 games back, and the Oakland A's are 3 games back. So very much fluid planet race, like we always expect year to year. But I didn't expect the Seattle Mariners to actually be still in the thick of the race there.
Yeah, realistically speaking, you can draw the line between Oakland and Cleveland. That being said, you've got 5 teams definitely in the thick of it, competing for 2 spots, which makes it very interesting. And yeah, I mean, you look at Seattle, 7-3 in the last 10. Oakland's kind of been there the entire year. In fact, they might have taken a step back, but and again, can't say enough. Toronto just coming out of nowhere. Who know? When you get to this point in the season, all expectations and predictions, and this team wasn't supposed to be there, and this team was supposed to be there, and they're not. All that goes out the window, and it's just you're there, you're here. And that if you could just, some teams have flipped the switch and see if they can keep going. Toronto, obviously, and Seattle, and some teams have not turned off the switch. So, yeah, I mean, who cares who was supposed to be here and who isn't? It's now it's all about who is here.
Totally. Another aspect of the Jays that what's interesting is that they're most of their roster and the actual lineup itself, it's pretty much comprised of a lot of newer players, like inexperienced players. So, when you get down to these stretch levels, there's, a lot of more times than not, there's the inexperience that takes over and is not able to, have people perform the way they do, or, after some experience, then they're able to handle situations better. And then there's also the fearless factor. Like you're so like young and inexperienced. You don't have too much pressure on the moment, and you're able to just relax and play your game. And that is what the Toronto Blue Jays have done. over the past 2 weeks or so. It seems like they just, like they have like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette and everybody else on the roster. That they're all very, very young players, but they all seem fearless. Like they seem like it seems like the moment's not too big for them. They're just going out there and they're playing their game, and they're not worried about what's not if this is going to be like the last year or the last couple years. Like their window is wide open. For the rest of their careers, and they're taking advantage of it. It's great to see from an objective standpoint. As far as the local New York Yankees, the race is going. Like the race is on. It's definitely the best record. It's definitely the best division in baseball. Outside of having the Orioles on it, but every division is gonna have one lame duck team in there.
Yeah, yep. It's with the exception of the Orioles, it's funny. My sister's an Oriole fan. She's just between her and the Orioles and me and the Mets. But hey, Mets are back. Yeah, I like to see this time of year. I like to see the more teams the merrier, just from a sports fan's perspective, especially in the American League, where I don't have a dog in the fight. It's just, the more teams the merrier, especially those teams you didn't expect, like you mentioned.
Yeah, well, I mean, being an Orioles fan just got to be awful because they have such a rich fan base. They have such a hardcore fan base, and it's just it's been like already more than 20 years that haven't been competitive at all. It's just it's sad for their fans, and they know it's the owner, and the owner obviously he's just going about his business. He doesn't care about nothing as long as the money's coming in. So it's just I feel for Oriole fans, because at least there's different fan bases that are not as successful as others, and they go through these issues. I mean, even the Mets, like in the past 20 years, they've been to the World Series twice, so at least they have something to hang there. Well, a little more than 20 years, but there's been some stretches of success here and there, some excitable moments and things like that. For the Orioles, it's just like you pretty much get to September, you just like whatever, bring on football or basketball or hockey or whatever it is, whatever other sports they like. It's just awful.
So, yeah, we've I don't remember if it was on this show where we touched base on it. I've always said that there's two types of owners in sport. There's the type of owner that puts business and profits first, and then or I should say the type of owner who's a businessman first, or the sports fan second, and then there's the type of owner who is a sports fan first and businessman second. And as a Met fan, I've been, in 1 year, I've done a complete 180 on that. There was the Wilpons, who were obviously business first, and I don't even know if they were aware what team they owned. Now you got, Steve Cohen, who is, got that almost remind you of Steinbrenner, with he bought the team because he's obviously a fan. He wants to win, and he doesn't care how much money he spends. These guys that buy these teams or own these teams, they're ridiculously rich. They've got other businesses, obviously. They didn't make their money in the team. They've got millions, if not billions of dollars. So, you don't run the team like you're a sports fan. I hate the type of sports owner like the Orioles, like the Hurricanes for a while in hockey before they sold. I hate the type of owner who is concerned with profits. The Marlins have been like that for a while. Just after they won their World Series, just completely unloading the team. Instead of trying to go for back-to-back or a dynasty or whatever. So I can't stand that type of sports owner who is worried about his profits of the team before putting a winner on the field. Then why you're in the wrong business then? Why would you buy a sports team if you're not going to run it like you're a fan of the team? And it's so nice as a Met fan to have that, and I'm sure Oriole fans are salivating to get back to that. That's as much as I hate the Yankees, got to respect George Steinbrenner, because he just wanted to win at all costs, did not care what it cost him. Guys like Mark Cuban, Jerry Jones, for all his faults, he wants to win. I just can't stand the type of owner like the Mets just got rid of and sold the team and Wilpon, guys that just are profits first and spend bottom dollar and don't even care if there's the league needs to step in more often. I remember the league got involved with the Dodgers a while back. The sports leagues need to get involved if an owner just has no plans of making the team competitive. because they're being cheap. I think the sports leagues should, obviously the sports leagues answer to the owners, but I think they should get more involved in making sure the teams actually compete.
Well, yeah, I guess that talk worked out for the Dodgers because now they're the new Yankees. They just outspend everybody, and they just they just do not care about luxury taxes or anything like that. Oh, it's an interesting point that you made about the sports and the owners and the way they operate business, especially with the fact that the the more successful you are, the more money you make. The more you're in a playoff race, the more tickets you sell down the stretch, the more revenue you get. Then every playoff round that you advance to, that's also guaranteed revenue because you have sold that nothing sells out a building like playoffs.
Sure.
That's where you get everybody else, everybody comes in from the woodworks and like people who haven't followed all year, then people that just like they just want to go to the game and they just buy a Yankee hat on the street and they just go in. Like there's all different types of fans like that. So just the bottom line is the money comes in with the playoffs. So every home game you get, every the more you advance, the more revenue you get. So, it's just it definitely makes more sense to put a winning product because that's where you get more of your revenue from. So, if you're a consistently losing franchise, then you're only getting you know scrapes of what possible revenue you could get. But if you're a winning franchise and you end up turning it around and you're competitive and create that culture, then it generates the business year to year.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, in this day and age when with the money involved, this is so much more than it's ever been. And me growing up, I'm not sure where the bulk of the money comes. If I had to guess, I would assume it's skyboxes and advertising. In which case, if I'm right, and I might be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume that that's where the bulk of the money comes. So when you have a team like the Orioles and Marlins, where billion-dollar corporations have bought the skyboxes, they're paid for. The advertising is all over the stadium. So maybe that maybe they're going to cut back and maybe ticket sales are a small portion. Again, I might be wrong. That's just what I would assume. So
Yeah,
in which
well,
case they're not really, if the skyboxes and the advertising was bought and paid for, I guess they don't really care about putting the winner on the field because the ticket price, fans in the seats are negligible. Plus, you've got half the seats are already bought and paid for by corporate. Obviously, we're very familiar with the Rangers, but I would assume that the big money is going to be spent regardless. So, I guess they figured they say they're obviously they're good they're better with money than I am. Obviously, they did the math and they figured there's no need to spend the money because they're getting the profits.
yeah, yeah. So it's a lot of behind the scenes workings, but then it's the fans that suffer. But at the same time, winning is what generates everything. Like if you're following a winning franchise, it's going to lead you to buy more merchandise, and obviously with the playoff advances, any kind of advancement, there's always like a T-shirt that's associated with it and a hat, and all these other like celebrations that they have on the field, and then they're like 2 hours later they're available to order online and things like that. It's just winning is the best way to grow the business. It's always that's the way it is. It's the way that it's always going to be. Um, and some teams that consistently do not produce winners or try to catch magic in a bottle and try to go the cheap way out and different things like that. 9 times out of 10, it doesn't work out. Except if you're the Tampa Bay Rays, because the Tampa Bay Rays, they don't like it seems like they operate and they do like they have like not the greatest revenues and things like that, but come playoff time they're making these playoff pushes, and people who say that it's hard to get to St. Pete for the games and all that, they end up filling them up. So that doesn't make it too hard for them to make it there for playoff games. So that's where you're getting the great bulks of revenue and things like that. So,
Yep.
uh, well, let's take a look at the let's finish up with baseball. Take a look at the NL West. So the complete picture of the NL West is the Braves are up on the Phillies 2.5 games, and then the Mets 4 games. So 3-team race for one spot. And this is pretty much the only guaranteed spot because with everything else that's going on in the NL wild card, with so many teams vying for the same two spots, or one spot completely locked down. We'll get to that in a second, but this is it. More likely than not for the NL East. Whoever there has to be one team that comes out of it, and that's pretty much the guaranteed team. There's the wild cards are very much of a stretch for the other two teams who end up not making it, and then we have the Brewers who are 12 games up on the Cincinnati Reds, so they have that on lock. And the best record in baseball belongs to the San Francisco Giants. They're the first team to 90 wins. They are 90-50. So the most surprising story in sports, I mean, in baseball this year, continues to be the San Francisco Giants, and now they have a 2.5 game lead on the LA Dodgers. Just fantastic what the Giants have been able to do is just amazing. Every week, I look at it, I'm just like, wow, like there's no way I saw the San Francisco Giants being that good, like and taking over the two powerhouses, because it was like, it was pretty much like a two-team race, between the Dodgers and the Padres. Ever since, like last year, the trading deadline last year, and then the off season, they're trying to one up each other, and then lo and behold, the San Francisco Giants, all they had to do was get healthy and get all their COVID players back who ended up sitting out last year, and they're dynamic now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not too familiar with them and their roster and whatnot, but certainly anytime you see those kind of numbers in the standings, obviously they're doing something right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but they don't really they're not really a team of huge names. Like Dodgers are, the Yankees, Red Sox, etc. But obviously, whatever formula they're doing, whatever the Tampa Bay formula, and whatever they're doing is working. Well, and I'm not a huge fan of that team just because I've always just never really liked Barry Bonds. I know that's in history, but because they don't have that ridiculous payroll and all-star team that makes them somewhat likable. It's going to be, very, very interesting. Just a lot of interesting stories here between the division races that have tightened, the wild card races that have tightened, teams like that with, that could set records. It's going to be just a very interesting September and October here, and I guess November. I think we're going into November this year.
Yeah, the one aspect of the San Francisco Giants that are that's very interesting is the fact that they had the most players sit out because of COVID. Because everybody had, every player had the option of either playing or not playing. Obviously, if you sat out, you weren't, you just forfeited your salary and you were just all set. You didn't have to report to the team or anything. So they had I think it was 6 or 7 regulars that ended up sitting out. So, they tanked last year, but this year they just came back roaring. So, all right. So then we look at the NL wild card. We have the Dodgers, who are 13 games up on the second place wild card team. So if they end up catching if they end up catching the Giants, or if the Dodgers end up just keeping that, the game is going to be in one of those two places. There's no suspense there like in the AL where it could fluctuate week to week and we don't know exactly where that wild card game is going to be played. This game is definitely going to be played in LA or in San Francisco, but right now definitely in LA. And then the San Diego Padres had a good week. They are back in the second wild card spot. And then we have the Cincinnati Reds, who are 1 game back on the Padres. The Phillies are 3 games back of the Padres. The St. Louis Cardinals are 3 games back. And the New York Mets are 4.5 games back for the second wild card spot. So, like I said before, looks like the NL East, there's going to be one team coming out of there because there's just so many teams vying for the same spot.
Yeah. I remember early on, it looked like the NL East would not possibly produce a wild card, but you've got those division race teams are definitely in the thick of things. 3 games out for Philly, 4 games out for their Mets, 4.5. That's definitely in it. Obviously, the division is because they're playing each other. All the teams are going to be playing each other. Obviously, the division is what you want, but they have inserted themselves in the wild card race. And I remember 2 weeks ago, remember I said that because I was rooting for the Padres, that they were, they were going to be my Cinderella team, because of just the juggernauts of the Dodgers and Giants there, and they've kept themselves, like you said, they had a good week. They kept themselves there, and I said if they end up making the playoffs in any capacity, well, obviously they're not going to win the division, but if they do make that wild card spot, they've definitely earned it. And they are officially on the clock now, because this weekend they got 3 with the Dodgers, followed by 4 with the Giants. So 7 games there. If they can, I mean, just not getting, just coming out of that with a 500 record, above 500 record, 4-3 or better in those 7 games, is what they need to do. But they can really show that they can compete and deserve to be there. This is these next 7 games are definitely the moment of truth for them, and it's going to be an interesting week to see what they can do against those 2 teams.
Absolutely. So, all right. So we're gonna work our way into the NFL. So this year, the regular season kicks off tonight with Tampa Bay and the Dallas Cowboys facing off against each other. So um, I looked up a couple weeks back. This was before the preseason started. The USA Today, they came out with their predictions on how the season is going to go. And the interesting parts about these, like they all mathematically work out, and mostly it's like so way off with what they end up predicting to actually what ends up happening. So we're gonna try to dissect and see where who's going to be the surprise team. I feel like every NFL season, like there's one team who was like super bad the year before, and then they end up just coming out guns blazing, and they end up surprising everybody, and then they end up making the playoffs, either winning the division or taking one of the wild card slots. So right now, all right, so we're looking at the AFC West. So USA Today predicted the Chiefs being 12-5, the Chargers being 11-6, both of them making the playoffs. The Denver Broncos being 8-9, and the Raiders being 8-9. What do you see going up and down, or what you know?
Well, that's the easiest one to start with. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs winning that division. Obviously, you never know when to start, but I think that's the easiest prediction right there. They're still more or less the Super Bowl team. They've been to 2 in a row, won one of them, so I think them winning it is a given. Beyond that, I would have thought the Raiders would have gotten a little more love. I was under the impression that they were on the way up. I guess they aren't anymore. I guess they had their moment in the sun a couple years ago, and well, it didn't pan out for them. This looks kind of I mean, the team's going to win that division, no doubt. I would. If I was going to bet on any of these teams in the league to win the division, my money would absolutely be on the Chiefs there.
Absolutely. I think actually 12. I think 12 wins is a little too low. I think with the 17 game season, 17 games regular season that everybody's having to play this year. I'm gonna say I'd say maybe they can go like 13-5 or something like 13-4 or something like that. The Chargers, I think that they have the hotshot young quarterback Hibbert, and they must be really looking at a really really great season coming out from him. The gunslinger, and just he also has the inexperience going against him. So I don't know exactly if he'll catch on that fast. But 11-6 in this division, and I'm gonna say the NFC North probably are the 2 most competitive from top to bottom, and everything else looks pretty fair. The Broncos, we have to see how their quarterback situation shakes out, and just I don't know. I think it's hard to see the Chiefs losing five, some kind of catastrophic injuries or something. Then we look at the NFC North. The Browns are predicted to win. Actually, have the best record in all of the AFC at 13-4, and then the Ravens are predicted to be 11-6, make it the playoffs as a wild card. The Steelers are predicted to be 7-10, and the Bengals are predicted to be 6-11.
Yeah, well, it's a little weird. Well, first of all, it's a little weird to see records that have 17 games in it, but I'll get used to that. But a little weird to see the Steelers. I mean, I know that they haven't been the Pittsburgh Steelers for a couple of years now, but it's weird to see that. But I'm gonna call BS on this. I'm gonna go with the Ravens to win that division. I know that the Browns have gotten good. I know that Baker Mayfield may finally be arriving, but you know they've talking about the Browns for the last like 2-3 years now, and maybe this is their year. But the Cleveland Browns, and until they going into the season, I'm not going to give them that respect. They have to earn it with me. And until they prove otherwise, they are still the Cleveland Browns. So I'm going with the Ravens in that division.
Well, I'd say Baker Mayfield's been gaining traction as far as achieving elite status. I wouldn't say he's there yet, but he's definitely he's had some big moments. You know, he's able to very mobile in the pocket. And he's been playing pretty well. He's available. Not really doesn't have health issues and things like that. So it's I don't bet against the Ravens either. I think the Ravens are year to year consistently good. But you look at the Steelers. I mean, the Steelers they were just like 11-0. And then they just took a super dive, like the most epic dive for somebody who started 11-0, and then now they're just predicted to be 7-10. Like, oh, how the mighty have fallen! It's so crazy. And then the Bengals, a whole year out of Joe Barrow. Let's see if they're able to, if he can progress or if he'll be held back, from his ACL injury that cut his season short last year. Very interesting division, very fluid division. Very weird to see that the Cleveland Browns are predicted not only to just win this division, but to win the entire AFC and be the only one that gets the first round bye.
Yeah. The Bengals, the Bengals. Are they the team that hasn't won a playoff game in like 30 years, like since like Boomer Esiason era?
Yeah.
I know that they played the Jets a couple years when the Jets had those two nice Ryan years. I mean, the Bengals. I wouldn't mind seeing the Bengals get good just because I'm a huge Boomer Esiason fan, Maryland. I've always liked them for that reason, but they're another team. Like I said, the Browns are the Browns until they prove otherwise, and I don't think this is the year for the Bengals to prove that they're anything but the Bengals, but. I would agree with that. That looks like an accurate assessment.
Yeah, unfortunately, those two teams are in, like the Steelers and the Ravens are consistently for the past like 3 decades have been really, really good. So it's really, it's really tough for those two to break through. But the Cleveland Browns definitely have the shot, both offensively and defensively. They do have some big time defensive players, and it's seemingly a great system there. So the AFC South right now, who the Tennessee Titans they have some COVID issues they're going through. Seems to be the only team that has like such a big issue as far as the start of the season. But they're predicted to be 12-5. The Colts are predicted to be 9-8 and narrowly miss the playoffs. The Jacksonville Jaguars are predicted to be 4-13, and the Houston Texans are predicted to be the worst team in the NFL at 1-16.
I think this division is a no-brainer. I think Titans are hands down the best team there. Tannehill is not bad, and he's you play in the Miami Dolphins. The first half of your career, obviously, and not much going to happen. Eric Henry is always a top 5 in every fantasy draft. Jones, of course, I think he could be great. He's kind of dropped down a little bit. He's has become human, but I think that connection can work. They definitely got some weapons, and Tennessee's just always got great defense. So I think that's a no-brainer pick for them. The Jaguars, well, they're going to be interesting because we're going to see what what's his name is as good as we all hope he is. I mean, I hope he's good. He's starting in one of my fantasy leagues.
Trevor Lawrence.
Starting quarterback. Lawrence, I'm sorry, that's his name. Yeah, this is. I pretty much agree with what we have here. I mean, Houston. They've always been known for defense. Clearly, they don't have it this year.
What bad luck Houston has? Like with first off, they gave all their all their high draft picks or a good amount of draft picks to the Miami Dolphins, who through two trades. One of them was for offensive lineman, and the other one I forget at the moment. But you know they've made some bad trades. Then they try to cash in on Deshaun Watson even before the allegations, and he ended up having he's going through some criminal investigations right now. Before all of that happened, they're trying to really cash in, and then the allegations come out, and everybody's like, "Well, all right, well, we're not going to trade for him now." So he has to sit out. Seemingly, they're sitting him out, while everything else clears up. So basically, they weren't able to cash in on him when he was trying to get a trade. They were asking for the world. They were asking for like 3 first-round picks and 2 NFL-ready players and things like that. And now they're not, they're not going to get anything. They're not even going to get him to play. So very tough luck over there for the Houston Texans. But yeah, definitely. I mean, you got to look at this division. It's definitely Colts or Titans. It seems like 6 of one, half dozen of another. And then, the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're going to be as good as Trevor Lawrence's development in the NFL. If he ends up catching on quick, they could definitely win more than four games. But if he ends up hitting the wall or not developing correctly and things like that, then they probably lose more than 4.
Yeah.
All right. So then we have the AFC East, which has the Buffalo Bills, which is everybody's Cinderella team right now. Everybody's like, oh, everybody's jumping on the Bills bandwagon. So they're 12-5. The Miami Dolphins are predicted to be 11-6. The Patriots, almighty, are predicted to be 9-8, and the New York Jets are predicted to be 5-12.
This I kind of agree with too. And what I mentioned before about seeing weird things in the standings. I know we've already the second year removed from the Brady era in New England, but it is weird to see the Patriots predicted to finish third, barely above 500 if they're lucky. They're going to be a big question mark because they got the rookie quarterback starting. Interesting. I like Cam Newton, and I would have liked to have seen him have some greatness there. That's a shame. But, yeah, I think this is kind of accurate. I mean, Josh Allen, obviously, this guy's got all sorts of skills, both passing and running. I know immaturity was a problem for him, and supposedly he's finally made some strides there. They've another former Terrapin of mine, Stephon Diggs, who's finally happy. But he's not happy. He's just not going to be one of the best receivers in the league, which he is. So, I think he's definitely got some weapons there. Cole Beasley, Singletary's an amazing running back. So this is, once the Patriots dynasty ended, this division officially became up for grabs again for the first time in 20 years. And I would think the Bills are the best team to, on paper. I think that's pretty accurate. Going to be interesting to see what, and I never pronounce his name right, Tagovailoa can do for Miami now in his second year. I have a newfound respect for that family because his brother is now the starting quarterback of Maryland. Threw for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a win over West Virginia last week, but that's a story for another time. So, yeah, man, sorry about another bad predicted year for the Jets, but yeah, again, you never know. You never know. Again, with the New England Patriots that we've grown accustomed to for 2 decades, removed from the equation, anything's possible.
I'm gonna say that the Miami Dolphins, top to bottom, hinging on the quarterback play, which is a big if, but if they can get solid production from the quarterback, not a lot of turnovers and reasonable contributions. I think they could win more than 11 games. Especially with like the Patriots seemingly falling off, and then the New York Jets. The New York Jets, I think maybe they could get 7, but they'll be lucky if they get 7 wins at this point with the injuries they've had to go through, and then just overall not really having that edge rusher to get the quarterback. I've seen a couple preseason games. They're able to get to the quarterback more regularly, which is fantastic. But are they going to be able to do it consistently every Sunday against first stringers? That remains to be seen. The Buffalo Bills, I'm not completely sold on all of them. I think that they'll end up messing it up at some point, like they always do. But I could see the Dolphins being the surprise powerhouse and taking this division. As sad as it is for me to say that.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. With the Patriots out of the out of the equation, there, it'd be nice to renew. If the Jets ever get good, it'd be nice to renew the Jets Dolphins rivalry. I mean, I remember growing up in the '80s in the Marino era when that's really good with that with that defense, the New York Sack Exchange. That was a great rivalry, and I was at that Monday Night Miracle where they had that ridiculous comeback against the Dolphins and won it in overtime. I was at that game, so that kind of both teams kind of went to crap, and that rivalry kind of took a back seat. But that's a good quality rivalry, and I wouldn't mind. I know that I'm glad that it's obviously still alive because you just made a comment about it. So I'm glad that you guys still. I would have thought all your hatred would have gone to the Patriots in the last 20 years. So I'm glad to see that you do still have that Miami hatred.
As far as the AFC East goes, like it's revenge time basically for the Patriots. So every team, I could easily see them going into last place on this one if the Jets could muster a good amount of success, but that remains to be seen. But as far as the Dolphins and the Bills go, like it's absolute revenge time. It's revenge season on the New England Patriots. So we're going to take a look at the NFC West right now. The 49ers, they're predicted to have a roaring comeback. It seems like they had the most injuries out of everybody last year. They just seemingly lost every key guy at some long stretch last year. They're predicted to be 11-6, while the Los Angeles Rams are predicted to be 10-7. The Seahawks are predicted to be 8, but with all 3 of these teams making the playoffs, and then the Arizona Cardinals finishing up at 7-10.
Yeah, I kind of agree with this. It's weird to see the Seahawks only there at 9-8 because they've been perennial. Well, not perennially because the Niners have pretty much taken over that division. But Russell Wilson is, for some reason he doesn't get the respect that he should. I mean, he's quietly been, one of the most consistently great quarterbacks in the league for the past 10 years or however long. He hasn't been there 10 years, but however long he's been there. And they've always had the defense, and it's just, that's another weird thing to look in the standings and our projected standings and see them third, hovering around 500. Rams as well. They arrived a few years ago, had some incredible years, and they've kind of fallen off as well. I'll be honest with you, I'm still not sold on Garoppolo as an elite starter. I think he's, if their defense is as good as they're supposed to be, as I've learned the hard way, being a Giants fan and that Super Bowl 35, a great defense, is all you need. Obviously, they have one of the best tight ends in the league in Kittle, but a safe prediction to say they're going to win the division. But an 11-6, that's not bad. It's not elite in the league, and that leaves a little room for error. That's not a bad prediction. Not top, not elite, but not a little better than 500. That's where I see the Niners.
Yeah, it makes sense because if 3 teams are going to come out of this division, there's not going to be one that kind of just super top heavy. There's going to be, there's a process, a washing process where they everybody's beating each other at some point. I'm going to say that Matthew Stafford being in Los Angeles right now is a very it's going to be really interesting to see what he's like without the whole stigma of Detroit. You know, is he going to be able, to like super because he was putting up numbers, he was putting up quality numbers throughout his whole career. So actually do better without like the dome and always being outside most of the time and things like that. A lot of different factors there. The Cardinals are probably going to lose more than 7 at this point. I don't see them really doing much of anything, unfortunately. But let's see how everything goes. The Niners, they can stay healthy, which is a big if. And then Seattle, yeah, Seattle is definitely I think the overall windows for the NFL is always smaller. Like there's not, there's like 2 or 3 years where you could be like super great, and then after that, before and after, it seems to be just not that much going on aside from a few teams that are just either consistently good or consistently bad. But the windows are very, very short in the NFL. Then so in the NFC North, we got the Packers coming 12-5, the Vikings making the playoffs at 10-7, the Bears being 7-10, and the lonely Detroit Lions being 3-14.
This is not the NFC North that we're used to. Well, we're certainly used to the Lions being predicted 3-14, but the NFC North always had that. It's had a lot of great years, and it usually takes at least 2 teams. I think the Vikings at 10-7. That's not bad. Bears 7-10. I think the Packers are 12-5. I would put them more in the 11-6 range. I don't think they're as good as they were. Aaron Rodgers is elite, obviously. I don't think he's things that he's used to having. I think they'll get over that whole offseason where he was kind of hinting he might have wanted to leave. Whatever, he's there. We'll put that. He's a professional. Put that behind him. But I just don't think he's got the weapons that he the level of weapons that he's always had. So I would put them more in the 11 win range, maybe. Just my prediction. I don't think you're going to see that division. You know what? I'm not going to give you the conservative prediction. Everyone's laughing at the NFC East last year. Everyone's laughing at the NFC East this year. I wouldn't be surprised if you see an NFC North similar with a 9-8, 10-7 division winner coming out of that NFC North. I just don't see any elite teams there, and I don't see any reason why that can't be very, very similar to the NFC East last year or probably this year as well.
So I'm going to say that the Packers take a step back. I think the distractions are going to hurt them a bit. I don't think it's I think they're still going to be contending for the playoffs. I'm not going to say they're going to miss the playoffs completely, but I don't think they're going to be elite. I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year. I think something like the episodes and the way it dragged out last year, this past off season, it hangs with a team, especially if they get off to a slow start. Then it really is a stigma, and then you start, any kind of tough stretch that they have is going to be associated with what ended up happening this offseason with Aaron Rodgers and the in and out and all this other craziness. I don't think it was a good look, and I think I'm going to say the Bears are going to be better than 10-7 if 7-10 if they get solid quarterback play, which we don't know. But right. I'm going to say that they if there's any team here from all the teams that we've covered, like the one surprise team that ends up being really, really good, I'm going to say the Chicago Bears.
I like it. Okay.
And the Lions, Lions are going to be the Lions. It's just the way it is. I don't see – it's hard to predict a team just winning 3 games. I don't know. I'd have to imagine that they're going to get more, but, you never know. And then we'll look at the NFC South right now. We have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are looking they're predicted to have the best record in all of football at 14-3. Then the Carolina Panthers and New Orleans Saints both finishing at 8-9, and the Atlanta Falcons finishing 5-12. The only playoff team being the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I think the Bucs have already clinched the division. That being said, it's going to be the team to watch, and I'm sure that maybe as a Jet fan, you'll be on the lookout for it. I can't wait to see what Sam. Now, granted, Sam Darnold's got a better team with Carolina than he had on the Jets. and that's not a knock on the Jets. I mean, you just have the team to work with. You had terrible coaching. You just didn't, now Carolina's not exactly, I mean, they could be, depending. I just want to see how good Darnold could be on a team that's not Jets. No offense.
100% me too.
I don't think that they are anywhere near the level of Tampa. And, you can hate Tom Brady all you want. The whining to the refs, this gate, that gate, the football, whatever. But I mean, what we're witnessing here is just history. I mean, what is he, 40, 45? Older than me. Yeah. And, new team, first team last year, boom, won the Super Bowl again. And I mean, the guy's got to come back down to earth eventually. But obviously, at a 14-3 prediction, they're not predicting it this year. I think the team got better. He can take a Super Bowl winning team, and they actually got better. He's got ridiculous weapons to work with. Obviously the guy's very, very hateable. I don't personally hate him as a Giants fan. He never bothered me, never did anything to me. I'm just rooting for history here. I would like to see him win another one. And he's certainly, unless this is the year where he finally comes back down and proves he's human, he could certainly do it. I don't really think he's going to have much competition within that division. It's interesting. Another thing it's interesting to see the Saints under, to be predicted under 500. I mean, the Drew Brees era has been on, there forever. That's obviously over, and just interesting to see the Saints not predicted to be a playoff team. I think that division is the Bucs and only the Bucs, and I don't really see any other team competing there. I think Christian McCaffrey's is basically, the Panthers are a one-man team, really. But again, it'll be interesting to see what Darnold can do. And the Falcons, they're the Falcons.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on a stretch and say that the Panthers end up making the playoffs. I think they'll do. They're gonna win enough, and I think Darnold's gonna be good. I'm not going to say he's going to be elite, but I think he'll be great, especially the relationship that him and Robbie Anderson had. That was like one of the good things that the Jets actually had going for him offensively in those years that he was together, and now they're both together in Carolina, so that'll help his development there. So then we're going to we only have a couple minutes left on the show. So the NFC East. So they're actually predicted that somebody's going to have a winning record in this division. The Cowboys at 10-7, and then the Washington Football Team at 8-9, the New York Giants at 8-9, and the Eagles at 3-14.
First of all, the first thing I have to make note of is the Eagles at 3-14. I mean, that's just spectacular to look at. I truly hope they are as bad as that, because that is beautiful to look at. That being said, of course, they got to pick a division winner. They're obviously not giving any respect to the NFC East, having gotten any better. Of course, they're going to pick. I'm so sick of this, media love and attention. Obviously, the Cowboys have that bandwagon thing going. The media is completely on board. Like, of course, they just basically had to pick a division winner to come out of this division, and they're going to pick the Cowboys. I don't think they got any better than they were last year, so I don't get it. But Dak Prescott last month was a question mark to even play this year. Obviously, Ezekiel Elliott is elite, but the Redskins supposedly have one of the best defenses in the league this year. So, obviously, I want the Giants to win the division, but realistically speaking, and I think it's clearly anyone's division again. I would like to see the Giants possibly compete for that. I've seen what the Giants can do with a 9-7 division winning team, so I'm not worried about that. But I think focus on my team, the Giants. Their O-line, it's not where I want it yet, but it's vastly improved. Saquon is obviously the big question mark. He came back relatively quickly for that kind of for the knee surgery. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. If he's 80% of what he was, I'm fine with that. That's a big question mark right there. We'll have to see how the knee holds up. Daniel Jones, I'm not sold on him either way yet, because he hasn't really had a fair shake. He had some bad coaching. He hasn't had an offensive line. I think he's got enough of an offensive line to prove if he is the real deal or if it's time to move on. So I think the Giants can absolutely compete for a playoff spot this year. He's got weapons to work with. He's got a somewhat decent O-line. Giants defense should hopefully be vastly improved. So Yeah, I think my heart says the Giants are going to come out of this miserable division, but my head says it might be Washington again. That's where
Yeah.
I'm at.
So I agree with you in a lot of the areas. I think a healthy Saquon Barkley and being the Saquon Barkley that everybody knows him to be will be the difference maker between them winning the division and not winning the division. Very fair to say that only one team will make the playoffs in this division. Uh, it's hard to bet against the Cowboys. The Cowboys they always have the big names on the roster. It's all about injuries and health, but I wouldn't be surprised if the New York Giants end up winning this division. Three wins for the Eagles, way too low. I think way too low, especially in this division where they're
Yeah,
playing the Cowboys, the Redskins, and the Giants. I mean, if you even look at it, if they split all those games, then that's their 3 wins right there, and then they're gonna lose 14 games against everybody else. Not very realistic, but we will
yeah,
see
yeah.
how
I
that
mean,
goes.
like this, it's just predictions. All I can say is it's absolutely spectacular to look at that 3 or 4 team prediction, and I hope it holds up.
All right. Well, it's going to be an interesting football season for sure. That kicks off tonight. And that is the end of our show for this week. Thank you very much, Scott, for stopping by.
Thank you for having me. Always a blast. Always a pleasure.
All right. Fantastic. My name is Alfonso Caldera. We'll see you next week. LDM Radio Sports Talk.